Time for another team top prospect update here. You got Aram and Jack McMullen. Of course, it's the call up, and we're talking Athletics top 15 prospects here. These are going to be a little bit more expedited, as we've talked about, because it's not a full overhaul and completely new look at the team top prospect list in terms of like starting from scratch. It's updates from what we had maybe going into the season or at some point during the season. I think with the Athletics, it was going into the season, but. You had some graduates. You had some trades. This is probably one of the more changed farm systems from, I just think, in names in the top 15 for multiple reasons, Jack, because we had the graduation of some very exciting young players like Nick Kurtz and Jacob Wilson. And then you had a rare blue chip prospect traded to them along with some others in Leo Vries and several others, in that Mason Miller trade. So this might be one of the more fun updates that we're going to have because of how different the system looks, but how strong it still is.
We also saw so many prospects that were already within the system grow as prospects over the course of this season. Like a name that I know we're going to dive into a little bit more is Joshua Kuroda-Grauer. Like what we learned about Kuroda-Grauer this year only boosted him in the prospect conversation. A Steven Echavarria, that guy, like he boosts himself within the prospect
Great
conversation.
point.
So not only was there acquisition and addition to it, you had growth within the system as well. And that's what makes good systems. Like, okay, player development, guys get better. And then you also add good guys. It's, what are the 3-word mantras? It's like add good talent or add good people and make people good. Something like that. But that's what the Athletics do.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that one. It's interesting too, because I think we've talked about how well they've kind of drafted over the years. And I think you also add in this draft class. And even the thing about it, we've talked a lot about Gage Jump, but if we're comparing it to where the system was before, it was not accounting for top 100 prospect Gage Jump going into the season. So another guy that made a huge leap there. Then you have the draft kind of, I think, working in an ideal scenario for them where they're able to go get one of the top arms in a Jamie Arnold, who has tons of upside, who you're really excited about. And then I loved even the complimentary pick of like a Devin Taylor and Gavin Turley. So they're in a really interesting spot in terms of the prospect depth, even with the graduates. And we talk about it like I want to do farm system rankings first, but a really fun article I think would be talent under 25 years old. Yeah. When it comes to talent under 25 years old, that is, I think, the Athletics are as good as any when it comes to that department, or like talent with 5+ years of control, whatever it may be, however you want to spin it. I think the Athletics are in a really, really good spot there. So we have the preview, or we don't, I think this is one of the last systems where we won't reference the previous rankings because I updated them before we documented it.
I've got the previous rankings.
Oh, let's go.
No.
Okay, yeah.
So we're good.
So do you want to just walk us through real quick what the previous top 15 was? And then we'll kind of go from, a couple of the names to watch that are new and then 15 downwards and just spend a little bit more time on the biggest movers.
Yes. And while you were talking, I remembered it was get good players and players get good. Those are the 3-word mantras, which makes a lot of sense. Like so simple, it just might work. Again, Get good players, that's the acquisition, and players get good, that's the development phase of a farm system.
Do those two things, you're in a pretty good spot.
You're in a really good spot. So the previous top 15 that we had Jacob Wilson at number 1. We had Nick Kurtz at number 2. Number 3 was Luis Morales. Max Muncy was number 4. Mason Barnett 5. Henry Bolte 6. Jack Perkins was 7. Denzel Clark was 8. Colby Thomas 9. Daniel Susak 10. Steven Echavarria 11. Tommy White 12. Kade Morris 13. Josh Kuroda-Grauer 14. And Grant Holman was 15. So that was the previous ranking before the 25 season began.
I remember getting to that like 11, 12 range, and I'm like, okay, and so it just shows you how much better the system is now. But some of those guys even just taking leaps, as we had mentioned. But one, it's very funny, like Jacob Wilson over Nick Kurtz. I don't even think that was much of a thought for me at the time because the floor was so high for Wilson. And now it's like, I mean, you want to do over on that, right? I mean, Nick Kurtz is one of the best power hitters in the sport.
But like Jacob Wilson was an all-star shortstop.
Yeah, I know. And again, great situation to be in. Perkins, I don't think anybody had him in the top 10 in the system, just saying, going into the year. So that was a good one by us. But then some of the others that were interesting, like I think there was I was expecting a little bit more out of Barnett. He struggled with the PCL, and I think
Sure.
as he got up to the altitude and not missing as many bats, I think maybe the velo wasn't totally there. Just another interesting wrinkle. We'll talk a little bit about him. But overall, I think I feel pretty decent about the way those things that list shook out. And also Morales is another guy that I think now clearly with the big league debut he had, we were always kind of the high guys on Morales. Seems like he's now a consensus, top 100 guy given what he did. Just some of the other names to watch real quick that are new. Shotaro Mori, the two-way player that they signed out of Japan, was the headliner of the 2025 class for $1.5 million. He can run up to the mid-90s on the mound, and there's some intriguing aspects to what he can do offensively as well. I think it's important to him to do the two-way thing. He hasn't fully done it as a pro yet. I think they've eased him into the Arizona Complex League, but I was able to get a little bit of video of him in the ACL, and I did like the operation for a young two-way guy. So I just a fascinating player. I know a big chase in 2025 Bowman Chrome because anytime you can get the two-way player, there's going to be a lot of excitement around that. But I think what's nice, whether he can do the two-way thing or not, is you have two different paths here. If one, dries up a little bit, where he can legitimately be, an intriguing player, whether it's on the mound or as a bat. And of course, in the off chance that he can do both, then you have a really dynamic prospect here and player. Eduardo Nunez, he came in that Mason Miller return. It's a fastball that averages 98. It's a power curveball in the upper 80s. It's two disgusting pitches. He just needs to not walk 13% of batters. But I have a good feeling that he's going to be a bullpen arm in some capacity next year.
Gotcha. Sprayer, but I'm excited
Worth
to see
a shot.
how it. Yeah, I've watched him so much in high A and triple A, and I'm like, oh, this is nauseating. But you know what? Give it a shot. He clearly found something in San Diego, and now here's to hoping he can find something more in Sacramento.
Chen Zong Aouzwang.
Good try.
Chen Zong Aouzwang. That I can't get it, but he is a little bit older for the class, but another guy that elevated himself this year, though. I mean, he threw a ton of innings, 128 innings at a 2.95 ERA, entering the season. And then I still think, even though the numbers weren't that incredible, from a run prevention standpoint, the fact that he went 145 and 2/3 innings at Double-A with a respectable 4 ERA and a really good K to BB rate, I think you're always looking at a back end starter, fringe 5 guy, whatever. He looks like he can be that guy now, especially building up the innings. So that's just another interesting player that signed out of Taiwan that elevated himself a little bit. Real quick before we go into the top 15 too, Ryan Lasko, not the most exciting or sexy player, but when we saw in the AFL, I think you were with me for one of the throws he made from center field that was outrageous. He's tooled up defensively. Offensively, it's not the most exciting profile, but it's not bad. Everything is okay across the board. So if he's a 90 WRC plus, and he needs to take another step forward to be that at the big league level, because he's kind of been close to that in the minor leagues. But if he can be anywhere near a 90-ish WRC plus, his plus speed, his just ridiculous ability to cover ground in the outfield, his plus arm will make him at least a solid bench piece and potentially a fourth outfielder. So I was just really impressed with the tools of Lasko, and the approach is decent, and he's going to be a big leaguer for them. I think there's no doubt about that.
Your family, your religion, and Rutgers baseball. Ryan Lasko, shut up.
Rutgers baseball. Him and Juwan Harris. Just to
name and Kuroda-Grauer, right? Isn't Kuroda-Grauer?
Yeah, and Kuroda-Grauer. They got a little pipeline going from
That's good.
Jersey.
Rutgers to the Athletics. That is the most obscure pipeline you could possibly imagine.
Hey, it's running. Gavin Turley is one of the new guys. He's at 16 here. Offensive monster in college. It's just, okay, what else are you going to get there? And there's a lot of underlying swing and miss. So in the 4th round, though, I think it was a great shot to take. He was incredibly effective, obviously at Oregon State. And when we're talking about middle, I don't want to say middle rounds because there's 20 rounds. But once you start to get outside of the 3rd round, I'm always a proponent of drafting the college guy who produced. You have above average power, above average speed. And if it can even be a 40 grade hit tool, there's a platoon or interesting role here. And who knows, maybe he makes a leap bat to ball wise. And now you have a really fascinating player, but at least there's an interesting power speed combination here with the outfielder Turley, who looks like he can be fine in a corner as well. So another solid get to just lengthen out this farm system a little bit. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add. He was really good in the college. I don't know about the College World Series, but down the stretch and a lot of the games that I watched, he was impressive.
Yeah.
Gunnar Hoglund kind of holding pattern at 15. Unfortunately, just I think missed some time again with injury. But when he was on the mound, looks like he could be that depth kind of innings eater type of guy.
And he made his debut in Miami against the Marlins, and it was legit to watch. Hoglund was a guy, we talked about it. He was just kind of filling up the strike zone with absolutely everything. He screams 5. When you close your eyes and try and dream, it's not like you see anything more than a 4, but like a 4 or 5 guy, that's valuable for the A's who need warm bodies in the starting rotation.
100%. And I think nothing jumps off the page, but if you got an average heater, an average slider, a slightly above average changeup, above average command, and a bridge cutter, you can get outs when you're executing and be a fine 5, as you mentioned.
Yep.
Devin Taylor was a guy that I thought would go a little bit higher in the draft, and another player where I think there was some underlying whiff that kind of bucked, I think made models weigh him down a little bit, especially with not a ton of defensive value. But I think that's where, again, the Athletics just seem to find efficiencies or inefficiencies in the models and grab players that I think get weighed down too much, maybe by some swing and miss concern. Devin Taylor looks like he can have an above average feel for the strike zone, above average power. The numbers were really, really good at Indiana. And I like the operation from the left side of the plate. And he's been able to run into some baseballs. He had a really solid collegiate career. Thought he looked fine in his pro debut. So we'll see, but just another college bat to grab in the second round that, it looks like he can at least have a decent chance to be a platoon bat, and maybe a bulk platoon bat.
Yeah.
Kade Morris, I don't know if he would. Where was Kade Morris in the top 15 before? Was he not in it? I don't think he was in it.
Was in the top. Yeah, he was. He was 13, so he rises a spot to 12. Or I guess he stays
now he's 13
now at
because
13. So he stays.
I accidentally graduated Morales and then ungraduated him. So holding pattern for Morris. That's pretty good though when you get up to the PCL and don't see your numbers totally just taper off. It's a kitchen sink guy. And another kind of back end, similar copy paste Gunnar Hoglund, but maybe a little bit more upside because the slider's above average and, I think a little bit more ability to potentially eat innings. This guy was not in the top 15. Wei-En Lin. The numbers are pretty fascinating. I mean, just not on a radar for us really much at all. $1.3 million signee in 2024. Left-handed pitcher, 6'2", 180. Fastball's above average. The cutter is disgusting. And that was the funny part is, I don't think I was expecting there to be a plus pitch with him when I was watching the video. But here he is just dicing guys up with this cutter. By the way, 19 years old last year. The command, he had a 77% strike rate on the fastball. Yeah, it was 91, 92, but crazy run to it. And just deception that just clearly had hitters uncomfortable between low A and high A. They managed his workload a little bit carefully. Like it was only 2-3 inning spurts a lot of the time towards the end of the season. But we saw some outings where he went 5 or 6 innings a couple of times earlier in the year. But his fastball had a chase rate of 43%, a 91.5 mile per hour average fastball velocity that's getting chased north of 40% is crazy. So that just shows you that there's some deception built in there. And then that cutter just seemed to piece up hitters and was incredibly effective for him as well. It's a matter of finding that third pitch, and he flashed a splitter a little bit as well, and then a taste-breaking curveball. But he's got good command. There's clearly some deception and some life to the fastball. And at 19 years old, it was a pretty darn good season between low A and high A for Wei-En Lin.
And 2 starts in Double A with Midland, which is so darn cool.
Nuts.
Yeah, that's crazy. But you know what? If they're going to start pushing guys, I'm totally in.
But, in the last start of the season at Double A in Amarillo, he went 3 1/3, 1 run, 2 walks, 6 Ks.
Yeah, that's legit, man. I mean, I feel like with these kind of guys, it's pushed them until they, start to get honestly lit up with how good he was in low A and high A at such a young age. It's like, okay, we're going to keep testing you. We're going to keep testing you. Obviously, you don't let that guy get to the big leagues and get ambushed. But, I mean, like Atlanta did it with Didier Fuentes. Like there are organizations now that keep on kind of pushing boundaries. It's teetering on uncomfortable. as close as you can get to uncomfortable for these guys, that's how they grow.
Yep. And I think the success that they're starting to have internationally is really fascinating too. And I think they're identifying these just more polished pitchers that they feel like they can push. And this is a guy too, as a southpaw, that I think you're going to watch him throw a little bit more and you're going to say, oh man, I love this delivery. Like, it's smooth. He repeats it really well. What's funny is there's not a ton of funk to it. So I am fascinated by the fact that he's able to get so much whiff and chase on the heater. It must be some sort of slight, what is high spin, which is interesting. Like, despite being in the low 90s, his fastball averages, holy crap, I'm watching him throw some fastballs north of 2,500. His fastball average is nearly 2,500 RPM. So there's something about the way that that's exploding through the plate and staying up through the top, even though it's not a ton of induced vertical break. That spin is doing something. It has to be, because the chase is so high, and the numbers don't really make a ton of sense. Like, it was 25% in zone whiff rate, 43% chase on a fastball that's 91.5 with like what seems on the surface to be generic movement profile. So clearly he can spin the baseball. It's a really smooth and low effort delivery. There's room for more strength too. He might be a breakout pick for me going into next year, just with everything he can do.
Love that shout. That's a good deep cut shout that you need. So I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, please, before I forget, because I'm going to say, oh, I can't think of the breakout guys, and then we'll try to remember. But I mean, you're spinning it at 2,500 RPMs. If he finds a little bit, if Lin finds a little bit more spin efficiency, finds a little bit more ride with that fastball, and that clearly, he could just manipulate the baseball a little bit. 19 years old to have the year that he had, I think could be a little bit more of a riser.
Love it.
You mentioned Josh Kuroda-Grauer. I mean, it was just a really solid season. Like, what else would you really have wanted to see from him? He solidified the bat to ball department, which is just clearly that was the asset, right? Like, and another reason why he slipped to the third round in 2024 is because it was okay, bat to ball, but is he going to stick it short? Is it 20 grade power? Like, I think again, a lot of draft models are not going to love that. And that's where the A's kind of say, oh, okay, well, if your model is going to push this guy into our lap, we'll take him. And that's exactly what they do here. And is Kuroda-Grauer going to be the face of the franchise? No, but I think he has a really good chance at filling a big league role for you. And you pick that up in the third round. I think he really validated that this year. And most importantly, he validated it because of the defense. Yeah. I watched a lot of the defensive video with him. And does he have phenomenal tools? No, but he kind of does everything that he needs to do. He gets the ball out quick, accurate arm. He moves his feet well enough and has the instincts to make all the plays he needs to make at shortstop. So great. Average shortstop, above average second baseman. Great. You can move that guy all over the infield now. Great bat to ball. Flashed a little bit more juice, I think, than people were thinking or were imagining. So now you've got at least gap to gap, and you have a guy that could be a second division regular, but definitely can be a strong bench infield piece for you.
You mentioned when we were at the Arizona Fall League, we've got both Tommy White and Kuroda-Grauer out there. And you made the point, like, the Kuroda-Grauer and the Tommy White pick in the 2024 draft almost hedge each other.
Yeah.
Like, you had the volatility of White, you had the safety of Kuroda-Grauer, but what you don't have in the ceiling of Kuroda-Grauer, you get in the ceiling of White. So, like, they work in tandem. It's really impressive. Their scouting director, his name is Eric Kubota. He's been there he's been in that position since 2002. I was reading a little bit on this bio. He got there as a college kid in 1984. He was in the A's media relations department from 1984 until 1989. Then he pivoted to kind of the scouting front office player development area. And he was the supervisor of international scouting from 99 to 01. He was the Pacific Rim coordinator in 97. And he's been their director of scouting since 2002. So he's been in that position for over 20 years at this point.
I mean, so we were talking about, I didn't know he went from the media side to
his BR bullpen bio just says he started working with Oakland in 84 when he was a college kid. He was in the media relations department in 1989. He was the assistant scouting director from 90 until 96. So he went from the media relations department to being the assistant scouting director for the Athletics.
I was making my case to you. I think he's like the most underrated, I think, like just executive. Would you consider that an executive in that role? Like, he's just one of the most
Yeah.
underrated baseball minds, let's say, and with the team right now, because you look at the drafting history, of course, recent history is incredible. But you look at it going all the way back to the early 2000s, like, what was it? He nailed it on like Nick Swisher. I'm thinking like Houston Street. There was a bunch of others early on. I was reading a piece in a conversation that he had with Fangraphs, and they're asking about Kyler Murray, and he said like he always jokes that they're just bad football scouts because they never thought he would be the number one overall pick. So I mean, I really think he's probably had other opportunities elsewhere, and for whatever reason, he's just thrilled working in for the Athletics and just continuing to do a good job with them.
It's cool, man. Like, so this guy, his recent picks, obviously he was an assistant when they grabbed Mark Mulder and Barry Zito and Bobby Crosby and Bonderman. But he took over his first year with Swisher, and he took 16th overall out of Ohio State. But then it's Joe Blanton in the first round in 02 as well. Mark Teahan is there. And you go recent history, like Sean Doolittle in 07. That was a good pick. Sonny Gray in 2011.
He wasn't a pitcher.
Like, dude, it's crazy. Sonny Gray at 18th overall in 2011. Addison Russell, it was 11th overall in 2012. Matt Olson was 47th in 2012. You had Matt Chapman at 25th in 2014. And then you had not Dalton Jeffries. That's not a good shot. But like Soderstrom. Yeah, Sean Murphy was not a first-round pick. But
yeah, but I'm saying just another pick?
Yeah, another pick. But like Soderstrom in 20 out of high school in the first round. Max Muncy, Wilson, Kurtz. Like, he's crushing this right now.
He's crushing. He's a dog. I that's a guy I would love to somehow get on the show, because it's just staying in that role there and just being like, I love it. I'm here. It's cool with me. Is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Another new acquisition is Henry Baez. He came over in that trade as well. If you were up front with Mason Miller, coming over with Vries and all the others, but I think with Baez, if you remember when we talked about him on the Padres system, just another very high probability big league arm here. And I think another guy that you look at the pitch grades across the board, if you're watching on YouTube with us, it's 50 grade fastball, 50 grade slider, a curveball that's going to be a 55 grade with a little bit better execution, fringy changeup, and average command. 5-starter. I really, and he's still on the younger side. Like, it could get, a little bit more out of him. Maybe the velo can tick up a little bit more, but it's 93, 95 and makes it work. So I think the Athletics see a lot of value in these types of guys, a little bit more than maybe some other orgs. I think every org obviously wants to have as many, whether it's back end, any types of arms that they can have that they think they can grab into it, stay in a rotation. But I thought Baez was a nice complementary piece to get when, you're getting Leo DeVries. So like, who knows what else you're going to be able to get on top of that. This is another really just high floor arm that you mentioned, just wanting to stockpile these types of guys. Yes. Now we have some higher upside guys in this system with the Gage Jump, with Jamie Arnold in the fold, with Morales, but you can't just bank on all those guys working out. So stockpiling innings eaters and those types of profiles, I think, is great. And I thought Baez did just about everything he could to just maintain, I think, his value and his status quo. He was a 45 future value guy when we did the Padre system, and he was a 45 future value guy by the time we update this athletic system after the trade.
Sometimes boring is good, baby. I'm in.
Yep. Especially with pitching.
Yeah, especially with pitching, and also with something else. Before you get to number 9, can I give you something else that is boring but good?
Yes.
Life insurance.
Yes.
It's one of those things that really doesn't get you out of bed in the morning. It doesn't fire you up, but you need it, and you got to make sure that your family is protected. And that is why, folks, you should be trusting our friends at Ethos Life Insurance. Ethos is an online platform that makes getting life insurance fast and easy to protect your family's future in minutes, not in months. There's no complicated process. It is 100% online. There's no medical exam required either. All you got to do, answer a few health questions. You can get same-day coverage without ever leaving your house, and you can get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. Some policies as low as $2 a day, billed monthly. Ethos is a trustworthy company that disrupts the traditional life insurance industry. As of March of 2025, Business Insider named Ethos the #1 no medical exam instant life insurance provider. Ethos has a 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 2,400 reviews. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/justbaseball. That's Ethos, ETHOS.com/justbaseball. Application times may vary and rates may vary. And that's another boring but sexy thing.
There we go. I love it. That was wonderful.
Yep.
Number 9, Steven Echavarria. He elevated himself a little bit this year, I would say. And this was a big overslot first round money, pick here in 2023. And as it goes with prep arms, it's going to take some time, and it has taken some time for Echevarria, but I thought he took a huge step forward this past year. You saw that fastball just improve even more. You saw just the slider get much more effective for him as well. And then you just saw the overall command get a little bit better. That slider, it's been incredibly effective for him with this short, just sharp bite that I think generated huge swing and miss numbers, and just a lot of weak contact as well. He had a 65% strike rate on it, which is a far cry from where he was, the year before. And I think it's easy to forget that Echevarria was still just 19 years old for the entirety of this season. Up until like the very end of it. So still very young, still has a lot of potential. But I think what he really solidified this year and what elevated his prospect stock to me was that I saw a guy that at least is going to be a good reliever now. And, you have the fallback of that fastball and slider, making him a strong, like setup type of arm. The fastball ticked up from 94 on average last year to 95 miles per hour this past year. And at points was popping a little bit higher than that. Towards the tail end of the season, he was averaging even higher. Like, I think as he got more comfortable and he's built up more innings, I think over his final 9 starts, he actually averaged 96 miles per hour. Echevarria did on the fastball. And again, the slider was as good as ever. He's still trying to find that third pitch. And it still was high fastball usage, about 60%. So I still think there's a good chance that Echevarria ends up in the bullpen. But now I see a guy that instead of, he might, end up being a middle reliever or whatever. Now it's this guy has the stuff to be potentially even a closer, if you imagine it ticks up even more. So that's the leap that Echevarria made this year, where the command got better enough to the point where it's like, okay, he could at least throw in leverage, and the fastball slider combination improved enough to where it was, okay, this guy can throw at leverage. But also at 20 years old for the majority of next year, still has plenty of runway to try to find that third pitch and just prove that he can stick in a rotation.
2 things. Number 1, they must love their guy that's based in New Jersey, because we talk about the Rutgers pipeline, but this is a New Jersey high school kid. Like, they must love that area scout. Number 2, I don't know how much this guy was throwing indoors, but I understand what they're doing in terms of pursuing the Northeast arm, because you would feel like traditionally their pitching life is younger than like a Florida prep pitcher or a Texas prep pitcher, because they're not playing as much outdoor baseball in New Jersey. Now, granted, like, that could all be a moot point if this kid is just throwing his arm off in, like, the training complex in February and January. You have no idea what he was doing, but it does kind of feel like from a 30,000-foot view, there would be a little bit more meat on the bone there, especially when it comes to kind of the development of this guy. So understandably so, it took him a little bit and like could be a late bloomer. They could just hunt late bloomers.
Yeah, and I think you're validated in that assertion with the way that he got stronger as the year progressed. And yeah, they managed his workload a little bit down the stretch, but still, I think you saw a guy that just was growing and getting more comfortable in the larger workload and look fresh, the entirety of the season. So doing that with an uptick, it's 100% going to make him, a more intriguing arm in this system.
Yeah.
Mason Barnett, I still at number 8. Like, I think it's a little bit of a drop, obviously, but still a guy that, again, you go to the floor and it's just so high. I looked at a lot of the underlying numbers, and even like when you looked at his big league debut, I think statistically it wasn't the best, right? He had a 6.85 ERA, but I thought, man, there's a lot of, I think, encouraging underlying metrics. You look at when he was around the zone more, like I think the first start was a little bit of a blow up. The second one, he walked 5, but he struck out 8, and then he settled in a little bit more on the final 2. It's going to be a little bit more execution dependent, and he's going to have to kind of put that all together. What was interesting to me is there was a little bit of a loss in quality of stuff. Like, I think not from a velocity standpoint, but I think he struggled a little bit. Barnett did with the AAA ball on top of the PCL. Like, he lost a little bit of ride on that heater, and I think that affected him a little bit with the confidence in the zone. He lost a little bit of a feel for that splitter, which was a solid third pitch for him, and I think that caused him to nibble a little bit more. But when we saw him at his best in Double-A, it was a plus slider. It was at least average splitter and a fast four-seam fastball that looked like it was above average at points, sitting at 94 miles per hour. So I think if he can find a little bit more comfort with that big league ball, I think we could see that stuff improve a little bit more. But still, Barnett looks like he could be that back end of the rotation innings eater once again.
Got you.
Number 7, holding pattern with Henry Bolte. I don't think I say holding pattern from a ranking perspective, but he definitely elevated himself as a prospect. And I think we talked about him a little bit. I'm trying to remember when and what the context was, but I remember on the show talking about how he kind of improved a little bit of everything that you wanted to see, right? Like you saw, and look, there's still more that needs to be done, but when you have a guy that is tooled up and you're just hoping that he can hit enough to make it all work, when he makes a leap in the approach department and just the swing and miss department, continues to look better defensively, it's a lot easier to gravitate towards that. He struck out 34% of the time last year as he also battled injury. And I think when you look at what Bolte has done now or did this past year, he took a 61% contact rate and brought that up, 5 or 6%. The in zone improved a lot too. The overall approach improved, and he cut that strikeout rate down to 28%. He was 21 years old for a good portion of the year and played in Double-A and then finished, I think the final month or so in Triple-A, and was really, I think, improved from a bat to ball perspective. Yes, you want to see him hit the ball in the air a lot more. It was a nearly 60% ground ball rate. But when we're talking about a guy with great wheels, good defensive tools, hits the living crap out of the ball, and takes a step forward in the swing and miss department, it's still a wide range of outcomes here with Bolte, but it is definitely a step in the right direction, especially in the end zone contact rate area where he's 76% end zone contact after being like 69% last year.
Yeah. Batting average was up, 20 points or so? He hit 267 between high A and double. In 24, he's at 284 this year. OBP went up from 368 to 385. Another interesting one, this guy has been a prolific base stealer. And I think we were talking about kind of like when he came up previously this year, we were talking about, I think, hot starts, but also just like the tools that were amazing. We were kind of checking in on the minor league stat leaders, and Bolte was near the top of stolen bases early in the year. This guy in 2024, 46 for 58 in the stolen base department. So he stole 46 bags, but he was caught 12 times. This year, he was 44 for 46 in the stolen base department. He was only caught twice this year. So you mentioned all these pieces in his offensive game that he's growing, one of which is the efficiency without losing volume of the stolen base, which is really cool.
And this isn't high A or low A. When he got to Triple-A in 34 games, he was 13 for 13. So he has clearly figured out how to become a prolific base stealer. You add that with the ability to just, at least I think, be a guy that can fill a role in either corner with the defense power. I know I was hoping he'd be kind of like a lefty masher. That's not necessarily the case, but that usually changes when you see big league stuff. And, you could at least be a short platoon power type of guy. It's like that Tyler O'Neill starter kit. And, if it all works out, it could be a really fun player, and he's still on the younger side, but I love seeing him pretty much improve in every facet of his game this past year, especially in the base stealing perspective. I think that's a great shout.
Yep.
6 is another newcomer, Braden Nett. We talked about him in that Padre system as well, of course, because he came over in the trade. And that was where it was surprising. I expected, of course, once you saw Vries coming over, like Henry Baez and some of the relievers to come over, but seeing them get Nett as well was really fascinating because we've talked about a lot of high floor arms that are high probability back end guys. Nett is not that, where he's got a high ceiling. I think could be a really fun arm that stuff wise, it could be middle rotation if it all came together, but the command has limited him. It's an assortment of pitches, man. I mean, you've got four-seamer, cutter, slider, changeup, sinker, sweeper, slider. Like it's everything. And when he's on, I mean, I don't know how you hit him. Fastball average is 96 with good life to it. And all of those pitches look like they can be average or better. It's a little bit harder to assess them because he's so inconsistent with the shapes and location. Yes, he walked only 11%, but I think a lot of the execution from Nett, it was very spray heavy, where hitters would just, kind of expand a lot. He could get back into the counts with the fastball or the cutter. But if it all comes together, Braden Nett's a really unique arm that would have an above average to plus heater, above average slider, and then, the cutter, curveball, and change of all look average or above. So if he can just throw some more strikes, execute, and kind of find how to sequence and what pitches work best for him, Nett was a great get on, to go with Vries, and I think could be a really fun arm for them. If it doesn't work out, another player that you put him in the bullpen, narrows that pitch mix a little bit, and the stuff ticks up, could be disgusting in leverage.
It seems like the final part of the minor league maturation process, which is the case with a lot of like kitchen sinky guys in the minor leagues, is finding, to your point, the other pitch aside from the fastball that you can land almost at will and you can get back into account with. The more I watch this game, and the haters tell me that I'm just learning how to watch this game, the more like you watch these pitchability guys throw, the more you realize that they're pretty easy to game plan for if you get ahead 2-0 or 2-1, because they have to get back in with a fastball. And the guys that can get back in with a fastball and something else are exponentially better, because there's just that little thing in the back of your mind that it's like, okay, they could give me a cutter right now. They could give me a slider. They could drop in a curveball. It could be a changeup right now, versus, okay, I'm up 2-0, time to sit dead red because I know he's got to try and get back to even.
Yep. Yeah. And I think with the caliber of Nett stuff, he could just challenge you with the heater and maybe beat you with it because it averaged 96. But if he has those other pitches that he can go to, you're just going to get those auto takes. Like if he's dropping in a curveball 2-0, auto take, that thing's nasty in the upper 70s, or throwing that hard cutter, you're probably going to think it's a fastball and, roll over on it or swing through it at 90 miles per hour. So what I like about Nett is you have the four seamer at 96, the cutter at 90, the curveball at 78, the changeup at 87, the sinker at about 95 and 95.5, the sweeper at 82. He's got like 7 different speeds. And I think that really makes him a difficult pitcher to game plan for as well when he's executing.
Love.
Number 5 is Jack Perkins. Just going to take a very quick victory lap here, because that was somebody that I think was not getting much love, even in like that. He still isn't getting enough love, by the way. I think if you look at some rankings, I still don't think they have him in the top 5. This guy's disgusting. It's all about health and, strikes, but he threw enough strikes, I think, this year. Perkins was kind of used in different roles, and sometimes a little bit out of the bullpen, sometimes in a starter's role. He was clearly way too good for AAA once he came back healthy, and then got up to the big leagues. And I think we saw some flashes of some really, really nasty stuff. 4.19 ERA for the Athletics, in 12 appearances, 38 and 2/3 innings. And that was a place, and will be a place that continuously is really hard to throw in. As we saw a lot of ridiculous home road splits. So you take a 4.19 ERA, from your pitching staff, and a guy that was making a fair amount of starts for you as well. I think he made like 4 or 5 starts to finish the season. But Perkins was somebody that we talked about in the last system update, as just improved his fastball quality and command significantly by changing his arm angle a little bit more horizontal, and it just seemed to roll off the fingers more naturally, but he was still getting ride from there. The sweeper was outrageous off of it, and then he had this bridge cutter at 93, 94 miles per hour. So that fastball sweeper cutter combination is just outrageous. He'll sprinkle in a changeup that flashes. It's just the command of it is not great. But it's a plus fastball. It's a borderline plus sweeper and a good cutter that I think can make him a really useful arm, whether it's, as a strong 4 starter or, as a Swiss Army knife type of arm in that, equation there. All of a sudden, man, the Athletics have a lot of arms that can, just kind of take a chance to help them next year. And it's like, okay, didn't work for you, next man up. Didn't work, next man up. They have a bunch of different players that they can recycle in there. But I think Perkins is a guy that's going to hold on to his spot, the entirety of the season.
Yeah. With where the system is, they should probably trade for another established starting pitcher. They could also explore the free agent market, although I feel like Luis Severino is kind of disincentivized like the Athletics trying to find a free agent pitcher at this point, especially given the price point. But like Perkins does seem like that guy. Well, at least we have Jack Perkins to turn to. that is the final step for the Athletics because that offense is legit fun and good at this point. They have to figure out the other side of the baseball. One more question as it relates to Jack Perkins. Who do you think he's rooting for on Saturdays in the fall? Because he spent 2 years at Louisville. He spent his draft year at Indiana. Do you think he's just fully on the Indiana hype train at this point?
That's a great question.
Because like he started college at Louisville, but I feel like, so he's from Kokomo, Indiana, which is hard.
I think he's rooting for Indiana.
I would think he's rooting for the Hoosiers at this point. So he's all about Cignetti.
Yeah. Especially since you got Cignetti now, I think he's all about the Hoosiers.
Yeah,
but
I would say, but Louisville's top 20, I think.
Which is crazy. Maybe that my Hurricanes, that loss may not be as bad as it looks.
No.
But yeah, I mean, 585 OPS against this year for Perkins between AAA and the big leagues. 178 opponent batting average. It's tough angles. It's weird. And it's just hard and harder stuff-wise. So that's going to be a good arm for them one way or another. Jamie Arnold, they added him to the fold. I think you're thrilled if you're the Athletics that he fell into your lap at 11. Kind of a no-brainer pick for them. And they add just another high upside lefty who, if it all comes together, it's a plus fastball, plus slider. And then you hope that cutter or splitter can come along a little bit more. And, same to go with the command. Like, I think you're hoping that comes along a little bit more as well. But, I mean, it's just another player here where the fallback is disgustingly, outrageously, like, weird lefty reliever that will work. But, of course, you're hoping for a guy that can play, towards the front of a rotation. And I think it's just a matter of kind of finding just a cutter or a changeup that can kind of bridge, that mix a little bit.
Yeah.
I feel like that Arnold pick really like just solidified the strength of this system though, because you pair that with a Gage Jump, who is one of the best left-handed pitching prospects in baseball now, with an elite heater, a plus sweeper, an above average curveball, and a strike thrower, despite, kind of being a high effort delivery. And now it's like, okay, we have Jump who did it. We have Arnold who can do it. And I think the pair of those two is really exciting because then you also have Morales who did it in the show. So I just, this trio of arms, like, given what they just graduated, you graduate 2 elite prospect bats in Jacob Wilson and Nick Kurtz. And it's like, okay, well, what about the arms? What about the arms? What about the arms? And now 2, 3, 4 in this farm system are, 2 and 3 are top 100 prospects. 4 is borderline. And I think the second he has a decent start to his pro career will be top 100 for us, but it's top 100 for a lot of other people out there. But 2, 3, 4, 5 are all strong pitching prospects. And then, oh, by the way, you acquired one of the best position player prospects in the whole sport in a teenager. So just where they're at right now is amazing. But Jump is another elite scouting success here. Comp B, 73rd overall, and was one of the best pitchers in minor league baseball. And the fastball characteristics were outrageous with deception built in. I feel really good about him being a big league arm and a solid one. And I think with the command being where it's at, he's a great chance at least being a 4. And looks like he's going to be a middle rotation arm for them. So you follow that up with Morales, who I think proved that he's going to be a big league starter for them because he took the step command wise. And that's a guy that we've been putting on top 100 list. It feels like forever now. And feel validated in that selection as well, or like that ranking as well. Morales, it was always, okay, he's got 3, potentially 4 above average pitches and potentially 4 plus pitches. Like, it just comes down to the command. And I think we saw from Morales, the command was good enough.
That was a generational stream of consciousness stack from 4 to 2 there. I just want to give you your flowers on that. It really feels like, to your point, they're just filling out everything that has to do with their deficiencies. And to be honest, like, they could have been one of the teams that could have just run through a 20-round draft and done the Angels thing where they just take nothing but pitching, because their hitting is fine at this point. Their hitting is extended in Rooker. It is controllable in Kurtz, in Wilson, in Butler, and all of this. Like, and it's fun. It's really good at this point. They're not hitting this, oh, we have to win before this guy hits the open market type feeling. They control everybody. They can absolutely control their own destiny over the next 4, 5, 6 years in terms of the lineup. So now it's just a matter of figuring out the 13 arms that you feel comfortable working with. And they probably have 3 at the major league level. Find 4 more in 26. Find 3 more in 27. And then all of a sudden, you're ready to really compete by the time you get to Vegas.
I agree. And I think Morales is the guy that you can look at specifically and say, like, he could, headline this rotation if it all comes together with the sheer velocity. I think what he showed again in that big league debut, like, that's just a really exciting arm to be adding to the fold there. And you look at what he was able to do stuff wise. I mean, no one touched his sweeper. 0.98 batting average big leaguers had against that sweeper. The changeup looked good, and the four seamer was effective. I mean, again, I think this is a big league breakout candidate. For those on the show, they're like, it's not a breakout guy. But when we're talking about the just baseball show, like breakout guys,
yes,
I think Morales is an excellent example, because how often do you see pitch grades like this, man? I mean, not too often. Are you seeing a 60 on the heater, or 55 on the slider, or 55 on the curveball, 60 on the changeup? But here he is, and that's what he's got when he's consistent. It was all about kind of syncing up that long arm angle.
Yeah.
And then by the way, they don't need a ton of position player talent, but if you can go get a switch hitting teenager who, is already in AA and succeeding, yeah, why not? And I understand that they had to part with Mason Miller to get there, but in the grand scheme, I think this is going to be a move that pays off for them. Leo DeVries to headline this system, you add him in there with all of the different leaps that we talked about and the drafting, whatever. This is to me, it's a tier 1 system. No, I mean, we'd have to really map it all out, but it with the depth that they have, like, I'm looking at a Wei-En Lin, and right now I already feel like I ranked him too low. And if that's happening at 11 and 12, that means the system's obviously depthy. Like, to also have the blue chip headliner, and as I mentioned, the trio of arms, I feel really good about where this system is at. And I think with DeVries and his, just tools across the board and star potential at the top here, already at AA, this is a farm system that is going to, I think, be one of the best when we do the farm system rankings. It's going to, not going to be in the top 3, but it's going to be up there.
I think so. I mean, I think it's in the same breath as the Tampa, maybe not Milwaukee at this point, but I think it's in the same breath as like Tampa, Seattle, those kind of things, because you have that 100%. Blend of, talent at the top and depth. There are plenty of organizations that have one of those. Like, their 15th ranked prospect is really good, or, their 4th ranked prospect is amazing. But very few systems in baseball have both. And the A's are one of the very few that has both.
100%. And just to hammer this home, final 50 games of Leo DeVries. By the way, he turned 19 years old 3 weeks ago. Final 50 games of the season, he hit 283, 364, 547. It's a 911 OPS. And by the way, like, he's barely tapping into his power potential. In that span, he had an EV90 of 100.5 miles per hour. But he's slugging like that because the contact rates were above average, the approach was strong, and the angles were elite. The air pull is amazing, 29% ground ball rate in that span. Imagine when he grows into a little bit more strength. He's a child. So, like, I think from that perspective, he could be an absolute monster. So heading into next year, I think he could be a guy that, if it all comes together next year as well, and he continues his progression, because you see the way that he finished the year at AA, could force his hand, force the Athletics' hand, and insert himself into the equation there. And maybe he plays third base, and all of a sudden you got a really fun infield situation and just overall team situation there. In Sacktown.
Yes.
Any final thoughts on this system?
I don't think so. I'll echo what you said. Tier 1 system, it seems, or maybe top at tier 2.
We're going to continue to rattle through these system updates throughout the off season, and just stay tuned for that. Also, a bunch of fun prospect interviews coming up, so stay tuned for those as well. Look forward to talking prospects with you again this week. Thank you as always for listening. We'll talk soon.